In the World Service of the BBC, this is Hugo Fay with NewsHour. 60 minutes of news, comment and analysis from around the world. In the 1920s, the celebrated American film director Cecil B. DeMille built one of the cinema's most spectacular backdrops. With Hollywood's not inconsiderable backing, he recreated an Egyptian city in the middle of the Californian desert. Once filming for his biblical epic The City of the Pharaohs had finished, the city was abandoned and eventually buried beneath drifting sand. But now, 70 years on, a group of archaeologists and film enthusiasts have rediscovered the site and are planning a major excavation, as Daniel Snyder reports.
I'm walking on a sand dune near the small California town of Guadalupe, where, local legend has it, an ancient Egyptian city is buried. Historians know that more than 1,000 men labored to build the city of the Pharaohs somewhere near here. It was undoubtedly a magnificent sight. The 4 5-ton statues of the pharaoh Ramses, the city gates flanked by 21 sphinxes, the temple walls extending more than 100 feet into the air. But no pharaoh, no Egyptian built this long-lost city. Cecil B. DeMille, the legendary movie director, built it in the early 1920s for his silent film, The 10 Commandments.
We've discovered that he had a contract with the property owner requiring him to remove everything from the site. However, by the time he finished filming, he was way over schedule, way over budget, and I think it was just cheaper and quicker to take it down and bury it, which apparently is what he did.
Filmmaker Peter Brosnan followed an oblique clue in DeMille's autobiography to this sand dune about 150 miles north of Hollywood. Though the Pacific Ocean is within sight and the frigid coastal breeze constantly buffets the dunes, DeMille decided this would be Egypt for his biblical epic. And so, in 1922, he built the City of the Pharaohs with 500 tons of concrete and plaster.
A piece of plaster Paris. We don't know what it was a part of, but it was something.
Clarence Minetti is an old cowboy from these parts. He and his family have raised cattle on this land for 5 generations. They call this dune the dune that never moves.
But you notice now all these other sand dunes back here to our right, they'll drift with the weather. But this dune here just stays this way all the time, and you can see why. It's got a lot of stuff here to hold it. I noticed this dune here for years and years and years and never paid no attention to it until Peter Brosnan come up with a story about Cecil B. DeMille.
We found an old cowboy who lived in the area and told us that he thought he knew where the set had been buried. We went out there one morning in June of '83, and lo and behold, here were acres and acres of plaster and concrete sticking out of the sand. With very little work, we found the 6-foot wide head of a horse, which was in the photographs of the set. And we realized that not just the sphinxes, but probably the entire set had been buried there. And that out of all those great sets that were built in Hollywood in the teens and 20s, this was the only one that was left.
Hollywood's long-forgotten practice of building bigger-than-life movie sets faded with the silent movie era in the late 1920s. The set for the 10 Commandments, perhaps the biggest of them all, caused DeMille to go terribly over budget. But moviegoers loved the film. Almost 70 years later, and with a $10,000 grant from the Bank of America, Peter Brosnan has confirmed that the 10 Commandments' lost city is buried in a long trench under the dune. And Brosnan's now searching for about $150,000 more to uncover the rest of this priceless piece of history.
We're planning to go back with probably about a dozen archaeologists, and we've targeted 2 or 3 of the very large pieces of statuary that are still well preserved. We're going to try to remove them, preserve them, bring them up to museum specifications. We're also going to try to identify everything else that's on the site. We think there's enough there to probably fill a half-dozen museums and to keep archaeologists busy for many years to come.
Filmmaker Peter Brosnan ending that report by Daniel Snyder on the mysteries beneath the shifting sands of the Californian desert. Well, that's it for NewsHour. So from me, Hugo Fay, and the production team, thank you for listening, and goodbye for now.